Okay, so today I wanted to actually talk about Sin CC. I wanted to talk about the three main CC skills that Sin has, which is none of the stuns actually, but I consider the main CC skills to actually be freeze, sleep, and seal. So the reason that I consider these the main CC skills is because, not because of their effects, but because they're so spammable. So Deep Sting and Tackling Slash work together. You can actually range lock someone permanently, and you can keep them stationary forever. You know how to use Deep Sting's cooldowns and Tackling Slash cooldown. So for example, if someone would just fly, please, pretty high up, and then I just need to drop them from the air. So I'll do Dante, I guess. So you just need to drop. So I'll just sleep you, 1, 2, and freeze. Now I can actually just do whatever I want to you. So this is what most Sins do. But it is possible to just continue the cycle. Like I can just permanently freeze you in the air forever. And I can actually do it with the sleep nerf. It's just a lot harder to do. But you can do that on any server. So now let's talk about the individual aspect. So Tackling Slash, as I mentioned, has range. It actually hits pretty hard if you think about it. It deals base physical plus 5k, which is not as good as Rip Strike or Slipstream Strike, but it still hits pretty hard. It also gives 50 chi, which is pretty useful sometimes. So for example, let's say I don't have a lot of chi, I could do this, and then this, and now I have enough chi to just do that. Just kill you. So it's useful for getting chi as well, not just for CC. And it's useful for chi when Rising Dragon and Inner Harmony are on cooldown. It's just an example. If you like need more chi or whatever, you could do the same thing. Knife throw. Oops. So it just depends on how much chi you need. So for example, if I only needed like 10 chi, I would use Knife throw. If I only needed like 5 chi, I would use Twin Strike, so on and so on. But the 50 chi is pretty useful. So there's not much really to say about Tackling Slash other than it's extremely OP. It's actually the most OP Sin skill. Just because you can keep someone frozen for, if my math is correct, you can actually keep someone frozen 73% of the time. If you think about it, Sin can keep someone frozen 73% of the time if they know it. And if they know how to sleep, then they can basically keep someone in the same spot 100% of the time. Deep Sting we talked about yesterday. Again, just that useful property of being able to do this, getting in 2 hits before you can respond. But now, okay, I guess I'll talk about Throw Cut now. Throw Cut is actually really useful. Most Sins don't realize it, but it's actually a very defensive skill. So most of us think of Seal as an offensive thing that you use with freeze because it turns into a. But in reality, they can't attack you either, which is pretty important. So let's say I triple spark, and if you seal me, then that is 4 seconds out of 12 that I can't hit you for. Now let's say that I just continuously seal you when it's on cooldown. It's 4 seconds and 8-second cooldown. So you're actually dealing half as much damage as you could be. So let's think of a theoretical situation. Let's say that Wayne triple sparks you, and your charm just ticked. What happens if you seal him? Well, he sealed for 4 seconds, and he only has 6 seconds to kill you. So effectively, your charm tick was only 6 seconds, unless he like sutured or something. So you can use Throw Cut actually defensively. I like to use it after my charm is ticked if I know I'm not going to get interrupted. So yeah, like if an archer is running away from me and takes my charm, then I'll just seal them if I'm feeling a little bit threatened. Here's the cool part. So it seals them for 4 seconds, and triple spark reduces damage by 1/4. But if you spam throat cut, then you are actually reducing damage taken by half because you're keeping them sealed for half the time. So it's actually a more chi efficiently defensive. So now we're going to talk about the reason that these skills are really useful, and that's because they can be chained together. So the obvious ones, I'll actually list out all the combinations. So we've got tackling slash, throat cut, and knife throw. So we could do tackling slash, throat cut, or not knife throw, sorry, deep sting. What does that look like? Tackling slash, throat cut, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sleep. So this one is a 9-second stun, basically. It's really defensive. Keeping someone locked is actually a really good way of... Stun lock is actually better than using double spark on this server when you're trying to play defensive. But that only applies to this server. I'm not sure if it does to other servers, because you might want damage on those servers. But anyways, you know all the obvious ones. This one is pretty easy to pull off. You won't get interrupted during the sleep. Other weird combinations to think about. So this one's kind of interesting. Deep sting, throat cut, slash. Again, chain stun like that. It's not as useful because, again, your opponent can move all throat cuts, so they might leave range, depending on whether they're condensed thorn or not. But I think it's really useful when I need to quickly stop someone and then chain it into attacks. Because deep sting is fast, throat cut is slow. Gotta think about that when you're trying to save your own life. Just think about useful ways to chain them together. Like tackling slash, right? Then I have 2 options. I can either deep sting or I can seal. So I can either sleep or seal. So I have 2 options. I can freeze you, and then I can either sleep or seal you. So let's say that you've frozen someone, and you're trying to decide whether you should sleep them or seal them. So if you use seal, then you can begin attacking immediately. So this might be useful if their charm is already ticked and you're trying to save time, because any second wasted is a second longer that their charm will be cooling down for. However, it's easily interrupted and it doesn't stop damage quickly. So if you die during the throat cut, well then that's just your fault. Sleep is a faster option, but it also means that you can't chain sleep after this. So that. But yeah, those 3 skills are actually what I use to control opponents. I don't really use stun. I don't spam stun on cooldown. Definitely not. Oh yeah, I talked to Wayne earlier, and he did verify that there is no counter to this combo, except for Lawbreaker on a Occult's Genie. It doesn't work on anywhere except TD99 though. See, the thing about that combo is that you have to let them seal you. So like Chase just let Dante seal him, or else he could have stunned or deep stinged instead. Like he had to be willing to get sealed. So that's the problem with the seal, I guess. GG? I don't know. See, I don't really think about combos anymore. I used to have combos, but now I just really string together attacks. All right, so I don't actually have anything else to talk about today, so you guys can ask me questions. Maybe stuff you want to review or stuff like that. Because most of the stuff with freeze, seal, and sleep is based on experience. I really can't tell you about like the zillion ways to use it. Let me see if there's any interesting stuff I can tell you. Control effects. Yeah. Oh, yeah, here's one. If I use throat cut on most people, they will actually act like a mob. So you can just call them a mob. Most people just walk away in the opposite direction. And if you do it to a mob, you'll notice they actually do the same thing. Yeah, Steel is a lot easier to open with on Storm, by the way, because of the minus channeling. So it's almost as fast as Deep Sting on Storm. Just something to think about. Okay, yeah, I'll teach you an interesting trick for Tidal. Okay, well, I have to wait for the end of Chase's Tidal. But you can actually keep track of your opponent's Tidal by using your own Tidal as a counter. So the Tidal will expire the moments that rotating cooldown icon reaches the lower left corner, just a little bit above the lower left corner of the Tidal icon. So that's how you know your Tidal is about to be out, right? But you can also use it to keep track of your opponent's Tidal if you know how many seconds off they buffed from you. So, like, let's say that they buff 2 seconds before you. Well, then you know that you have a 2-second window of opportunity that you have Tidal. So, for example, I'm able to predict that your Tidal will come off now. And then, well, there we go. And then I would be able to stun you. So I would go for the sleep right before your Tidal ends, so you actually can't mace step right as your Tidal ends, which is pretty interesting. But yes, this is a pretty interesting trick. You can try to CC someone with like a secondary skill, such as tackling slash, sting, right before their Tidal goes off, so that as their Tidal goes off, they're already CC'd. So for example, if I froze someone right before their Tidal went off, I would just be able to seal them. Telestun trick, yeah, there's a couple neat aspects to it. So you know how sometimes you telestun someone, but you don't actually end up at their position? That's because you're actually teleporting to their previous position from like half a second ago. So you always have to take that into account when someone's moving. The distance is greater when someone is moving quickly because of the time lag. And if they're moving really slowly, then the distance difference will be almost non-existent. Some other things to keep in mind about Shadow Teleport are that you can't use it on other people when you're right on top of them. So don't move, Chase. Just try to telestun me. So I can get to this position just by using jump on you. Yeah, you can't telestun anyone. Like, I wouldn't be able to telestun any one of you if you were on top of me. I'd be able to do that. Nothing else. So here's the interesting thing. If you teleport to someone, hang on, Dante, don't move. Like, if I do this, and then I teleport to you, and then I freeze you, you cannot telestun me. And this is useful in classes like Seeker, which has telestun, and also even Dustblade, which has a telestun. It doesn't work if someone is right on top of you. You were right on top of them. So pretty interesting. Sometimes I just freeze people and stand on top of them because I don't want them to telestun me. Other tricks. There's this one trick I remember. It involves flying. Can someone fly for me, please? If you hit the keys at the right time, your wings will actually come out without any animation. It's pretty interesting. Normally the animation takes a while, but there's a specific way to do it that your wings won't actually open. It's pretty interesting. I haven't got the timing exactly right. I used to be able to do it with Shadow Jump or Shadow Teleport. Oh yeah, that's an interesting trick. Yeah, you can teleport to someone's location behind you as a way to kite. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I've used that before. It's pretty troll. Oh yeah, use it in Mass PK. Just teleport to mobs and then hit the mob for blood paint. That's what Wayne does. That's how he lives in Mass PK. He just teleports to me or mobs because he knows I'm far away. Blood Frenzy is pretty good. You'd have to check for yourself. Okay, so let's say I use Blood Frenzy. All right. I don't actually keep it on my bar because I never use it. So my blood paint heal off of you is actually 187, so that's not significant. But it is significant if I hit a mob or 2k heals, which is actually pretty good. Oh yeah, TOP is really good if you do it and then you spark, because your spark will actually heal you for the HP max determined by tree protection, which means it'll heal more than normal. So it's actually better to use tree protection and then spark, because you get healed more. And that's also why I tree protection right before my charm gets ticked, because then my charm will actually tick for the HP value determined by tree protection, not my normal value. So I actually get like 30% more heals than I would normally. So it's really nice to damage contest, but it doesn't work if you're not able to support. Yes. All right, Dante. Well, I guess I fight you now. GG. Well, I guess I'll get the fights in without shield protection or no, shield the deep. Any shield the deep? Yeah. So there's a 1.5 second difference. Open with knife throw. I just start using quick skills because people tend to be more fearful. I see he's frozen, so I immediately go for the power dash, and he doesn't use it. I got lucky with that. Well, he doesn't actually have any genie right now, so I'm just going to risk it all, and then I get. Because I know he doesn't have any genie, and I'm triple sparked. So there is that. So yeah, you can, like, I sometimes go for CC right after Genie, because they usually can't do anything afterwards, unless it's like Storm and they have like a 200, something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I guess I'll try to comment on my decision making. I usually start out with a lot of DPS skills. Like I know Sins on Storm tend to start out with Deep Sting or stuff like that, or like Rip Strike. I guess you don't like SS. I guess I use it anyways. But yeah, I know a lot of Sins on Storm tend to use on like Rip Strike or then Storm or stuff like that first. I just start out immediately with Life Hunter and just hold down the key because honestly, it gives better damage, which puts you in a more favorable position. And you actually start hitting the other person first, which means you have a little bit of, you have like a half-second advantage. And it's cancelable, so you can just cancel if you feel like you are getting dicked. I am ready for number 2. Go, I guess. Well, I guess I interrupt your knife throw. So I'm feeling aggressive since you just leap towards me, but that didn't work. Immediately got some chi, I got another CC in. I see that you use Tree of Protect. So I'm going to try to get out of range before you can follow up, because now you've wasted a Genie skill, and basically I've gotten an immunity out of you while using nothing of my own. I go for Deep Sting because I know you're running towards me. Now I'm frozen. I try to block some damage because my charm is ticked. I also have you frozen, which is in a really interesting position. So I AD here because I don't actually have Deaden. And then I tick your Deaden anyways because you're too late. But I did feel like I would be able to hit you through triple spark for the damage, which is why I used AD. Continued attacking because I knew I would be safe by AD either way. I triple spark here because I feel like Ariashi. I hit you for like more than you stay next to me far too long, and then you die because I can 2-hit you.